G'day Bomber fans, we'll get ready for a few of these videos. We have some new draftees to meet and we may as well go day by day in order of picks. We had to wait quite a while until our next selection after Isaac Kako. There was a bit of talk of us trading up the order and whatnot, but in the end we patiently did our waiting for a key position player, and with pick 37 we took Kayle Gerreyn through the doors. I think when you got players from other states after the first round of the draft, it's a little bit harder for non-nuffies to get to know them. So today I'm going to tell you all about our new West Aussie ruck. I've spoken about him on the channel before, but I'll talk about him, what he's like as a player, as a person, his strengths, his weaknesses, and stay tuned to the channel because I'm going to do the same very shortly, probably tomorrow, for Angus Clark, who we also picked up, and the other selections as well. But I know you guys will really want to hear about Angus Clark specifically. I personally really rate that selection, so subscribe for that. Stay tuned for any other videos. I'll talk about the rookie draft guys as well, but today it's all about Kayle Gerreyn, so let's get into it. So Kayle Gerreyn, 18-year-old, 199cm West Aussie forward or ruck. He plays both of those positions and he's excelled in both this year already. I'll talk about his strengths and weaknesses in a bit, but Gerreyn is very well known on draft boards for his skills on both sides of his body, for a player this tall especially, and also his agility and work rate as that follow-up ruck. Those are great traits. Gerreyn, in many eyes, is one of the most exciting rucks in this draft pool. In fact, some rate him highest on their boards. I personally had him at 39 on my power ranking, but Jasper from over at ESPN had him at 21, I believe. He was a really promising key forward who, because of a growth spurt, began to learn some ruck craft, and that growth spurt helped him make his Waffle League debut for West Perth this year. He played 2 games after some really impressive under 18s form. In fact, he actually finished third in the West Perth best and fairest from a little over half a season for the club. He had some monster games in that time. He actually had back-to-back games where he amassed over 30 disposals and 30 hitouts, showing he's not only a dominant tap ruck, but one who can rack up the pill around the ground and use it well. He also kicked 2 goals in both those games as well, showing he's a target up forward. As a player, he's a bullocking tall, he's very athletic on ground level, and he has elite agility for his size, but when the ball is in the air, he's more focused on body contact and strength to win contested marks. He isn't that high-flying, specky-taking tall, he's more of that bash and crash type, and that's the same with his ruck work too. He opts to engage early and win a contest through strength alone, and then when the ball hits the ground, he follows it up really well thanks to his great work below his knees. We've drafted him as a forward or ruck, but I think he will eventually develop to be a forward for us. Let's have a little look at his stats and performances. So he was obviously incredible for West Perth in the Waffle Colts. He played 11 games, kicked 18 goals, he averaged over 20 hitouts and 20 disposals a game, showing that he not only wins hitouts, but he wins the ball in open play. He likes a clearance. He'll take the ball out of the ruck and put it on his boot with that massive penetrating kick. He did play 2 Waffle games, less to like about those games, but he was off the pace a tad. It was expected with an 18-year-old so early into his career, so we'll see how he goes in the Waffle. But in those 2 games, he kicked 2 goals and averaged 7 touches between them. He was really impressive in champs for Western Australia too. Aiden Riddle did do most of the rucking for WA, but Gerreyn was a force up forward, kicking 5 goals from his 4 games and having some incredible glimpses which really caught my eye while watching. It was there when I first noticed him play, especially in that game against South Australia, I think it was. That was when I started to think, okay, this kid can play footy. And from there, I had to move him up my order a lot more. Those stats look good for a ruck, and I think next year we'll see him play a bit like Vigo Vicentini does in the VFL, mostly as that forward, but a few glimpses in the ruck to see his craft develop as well. Strengths and weaknesses, starting with the good. Well, the big one's his agility. I say the big one, but there are 2 big ones. Agility and kicking. Those are the 2 things that I think set Gerreyn apart from other rucks. But agility to start, he just moves incredibly well for a 2-meter player. You don't think he's that tall watching him run, but when, as we'll get to later, it's nothing about his strength and power. It's rare to see athletes this tall that are so good around the ground and on ground level. His agility and speed really helps him act as that follow-up ruck, kind of like what you see with Draper, but unlike Draper, Gerreyn can actually kick the pill, and this is what I think sets him apart from most rucks in the comp. This guy's a really nice kick of the ball. He can use both feet, primarily right, but I've seen him on his left and he's fine. He's a booming kick as well. He can clear 50 easily. I said in my video, my draft recap video, that he is just a confident player, set shot player as well, and I like that. We don't really have too many of those at the club. It helps him be that real target, not only inside 50 but around the ground, because he doesn't need a kicking midfielder around him for a hand pass. He can use the ball himself. Those 2 strengths are the big one for me, and then of course there is his actual strength. He isn't a lean and skinny ruck. He won't be struck down with those growing injuries. Most of his physical growing is already done, but he's a strong boy and he crashes packs and makes markers earn that mark. Versatility, he can play ruck or forward. As I said earlier, he was a forward as a junior, and a growth spurt helped him play ruck as well, but we'll take him and kind of develop him in both positions, mostly as a forward. It's hard to really know where he'll play his best footy. I do think forward, but I wouldn't be surprised if he becomes a ruck instead as well. And marking, he's a tall, strong kid. He goes in a pack hard. He's got really good, clean hands. He's a very strong mark. Part of that obviously is because of those long arms, so maybe that strength isn't as prominent in an AFL system with taller bodies, not 100% sure yet. But we've seen him pluck some beauties this year already. I haven't seen his highlights reel yet. I don't think the club's posted it, but I'm sure that 80% of it when it is out will just be massive grabs. From what I remember, I just remember him towering over some packs and one-on-one defenders. So yeah, agility, really just athleticism really. Kicking, strength or power, versatility and marking. Those for me are his big strengths, and a few of those are really big. I can't stress this enough, but for a big man, he is really agile and kicks the ball really well, so get keen for that. Alright, weaknesses. Endurance is the one I hear about the most, and I think you see that with his early game form and late game form. This is obviously harder to really notice if you don't watch the players week to week, because I don't. He's a West Aussie, but he will need to work on his game day endurance. He's a hard worker, but I think his tank isn't quite where it needs to be for AFL level, so it's probably going to take a little while to be ready in that regard, and a preseason will really help with that. This is, by the way, a common weakness with younger players and younger bodies. It's one that gets sorted out once they train with AFL players on a list. So really, it's up to our leaders at the club to set the standards for Gerreyn to improve his tank. Defensive craft, it's not the biggest issue, but you do see him act a bit more lost when having to defend a moving footy, and in our system that's important. That's more because he's been a forward for so long and then moves into the ruck a bit with more time and has to play high up the ground. And I am going to include rawness here in this discussion because I think he's still pretty new to his ruck role, and you do see a bit of that rawness. He's had to be coached pretty heavily on giving away free kicks for above the shoulder frees in stoppages, so there'll be a lot of that, so he'll have lots to learn. Luckily he's under Goldstein at training, and that year with Goldie is going to be so valuable for his ruck craft. Really, that should have him set for the future. Footy IQ, I mean, this is very much an aggressive ruck trait. They aren't always the smartest players in teams. So he does make some odd decisions here and there. He'll need to improve that in preseason training, especially with the speed of AFL against him. And aggression, I mean, I was struggling to find a fifth weakness to really talk about. I like his aggression personally, but he can give away some free kicks, go in hard for marks or tackles, and if he's a beat off, he could collect an opponent or be at risk of giving away a free. So yeah, those are the weaknesses I've seen from him. I haven't watched as much as other players, so this may just be things that I noticed more in specific games, but from what I've seen, these are a few things he should be aiming to improve on. So what should our expectations be for Gerreyn next year and beyond? Physically, I think he's close to ready-made. He is strong, agile, athletic. Obviously, like I said, he needs to work on his endurance and four-quarter consistency in that regard, making sure that he has the tank to run out full games, because that is important. So we'll need to see how ready he is this preseason for that, but he is a hard worker. I expect him to improve on his weaknesses. I wouldn't be shocked if he plays next year, but I think he is probably more likely an option for 2026. I will say though, I think he comes into the team and immediately leapfrogs Vigo Vicentini on the pecking order. So expectations, I don't expect him to be a main feature in our AFL team anytime soon, and I'm not really as convinced about him for the future as I am with Kako and Angus Clark and others, but if he gets it right and improves his weaknesses, he will be a real player, I can tell you that. I'm not saying he's going to be a star, but he definitely has the potential to be a good player for the club, and that's the exciting thing though. If he gets that message drilled into his head, then it'll be even more exciting because the opportunity is there for him. He's got the athletic capabilities, the skill set. If he wants to take it, he can. He just has to knuckle down and really go to work in the next year or so. But plenty of work needs to be done still, and it all starts when he arrives at the hangar. Remember, he is a West Aussie, so this will be a big move for him. I get the feeling he'll likely room with one of the West Aussie boys, Nick Martin or Mac Welfie. I don't really know how that much works, and hopefully he's at the club as early as Monday next week. Alright, well that is that. Kayle Gerreyn. Let me know what you think down below about our new forward or ruck for the future. Big unknown, I would say. We know Kako will be good. We know Clark can be a reliable defender for the future too, but Gerreyn, I don't know how good he's going to be, and that's fun. I like that. That's exciting, and that's also all for this video. Like if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new, and go Bombers.